Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shema Israel 7. Mishpacha and people following on Facebook. Today we're going to be going over the Torah portion of Shoftim. But before we do that, let's blow the shofars and pray. So if you have a shofar, if you have a shofar at home or here in the crowd, blow it with us. Count of three. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Amen. All right, let's pray. Avinu Malkeinu, our Father and our King, Abba, thank you for this day, this set-apart day, your Shabbat that you've given us, that we can come together and worship you and get into your word, Abba. Abba, I pray that you open our hearts and ears so we can receive your word, and I pray that you help Robert and I to speak your word and your truth, that we may be a blessing to all those watching and listening. And I pray, Abba, that you also bless those who participate in this, who ask the questions. May it be a blessing to them, Abba. We just love you and praise you and thank you for this time. In Yeshua's precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, so like I had said earlier, we're going over Shoftim, which is Judges, which is starts in Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 18, and goes to Deuteronomy 21, verse 9. So, Robert, if you want to get us started.
You shall appoint judges and officials throughout your tribes, in all your towns, that Yahovah your El is giving you, and they shall render just decisions for the people. You must not distort justice, you must not show partiality, and you must not accept bribes. For a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and subverts the cause of those who are in the right. Justice, and only justice, you shall pursue, so that you may live and occupy the land that Yahovah your El is giving you. You shall not plant any tree as a sacred pole beside the altar that you make for Yahovah your El, nor shall you set up a stone pillar, things that Yahovah your El hates. You must not sacrifice to Yahovah your El an ox or a sheep that has a defect, anything seriously wrong, for that is abhorrent to Yahovah your El.
I'm going to actually stop you just because we got to the chapter division. So in Deuteronomy 16, it's just talking about keeping justice and how justice is to be administered. You know, we're not to take bribes, because bribes will blind the eyes of righteousness and twist the words. So, you know, this is why we have a lot of rules, like even today in our country, you know, who you can give things to, who you can give money to. Like, it's not good to be able to give gifts to judges. So you know, we don't do that. But we need to be careful that we always, you know, make sure that we're not tilting the scales, per se. And then we just have commandments on, you know, you should not plant a tree with an image. So no worshiping Yah the way the pagans worshiped Yah. All right, go on.
In verse 20, some of the translations use righteousness, and only righteousness you shall pursue. When it comes to those that are appointed in authority as judges over you, those judges typically reflect the people at large. And if you're electing unrighteous judges, then you will get unrighteous judgments. So in everything that we do, we should act righteously. Even with your offerings, anything that you obtain should be obtained righteously. Because to give any proceeds from unrighteous gains to Yah, he doesn't want that. He has no interest in that. Everything that we do should be done righteously. And that righteousness is a reflection upon Yah. So everything that we do, we should be very cognizant of how we're representing our Father, because people pay attention to those things. If we profess him, people expect our actions to reflect that.
I think, like you said, like the elected judges, like in this country, we do elect our judges. And sadly, it seems like that's something, when we go to vote for our judges, that's something that we don't really pay much attention to.
Right.
We don't know the history of these judges so much. We just know what maybe little is written in the booklet about them. It's not really a contested position like, the governor or whatnot, that you spend maybe more time reading about what their thoughts are. And this is something that, like unfortunately we get a corrupt judge in there and we don't realize it. And we won't really have an opinion on it until someone is personally affected that we know, which is unfortunate because usually that just means that person gets to stay in there. And most judges, once they get in, they just get reelected because of that. So, I think it's something if we could, we should figure out more information on the judges that we do elect. But I just want to say that.
Okay, continuing on. If there is found among you in one of your towns that Yahovah your El is giving you, a man or woman who does what is evil in the sight of Yahovah your El, and transgresses his covenant by going to serve other Elohim and worshiping them, whether the sun or the moon, or any of the host of heaven, which I have forbidden. And if it is reported to you, or you hear it, and you make a thorough inquiry, and the charge is proved true that such an abhorrent thing has occurred in Israel, then you shall bring out to your gates that man or that woman who has committed this crime, and you shall stone the man or woman to death. On the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses, the death sentence shall be executed. A person must not be put to death on the evidence of only 1 witness. The hands of the witnesses shall be the first raised against the person to execute the death penalty, and afterwards the hands of all the people. So you shall purge the evil from your midst. If a judicial decision is too difficult for you to make between one kind of bloodshed and another, one kind of legal right or another, or one kind of assault or another, any such matters of dispute in your towns, then you shall immediately go up to the place that Yahovah your El will choose, where you shall consult with the Levitical priests and the judge who is in office in those days. They shall announce to you the decision in the case. Carry out exactly the decision that they announce to you from the place that Yahovah will choose, diligently observing everything they instruct you. You must carry out fully the law that they interpret for you or the ruling that they announce to you. Do not turn aside from the decision that they announce to you, either to the right or to the left. As for anyone who presumes to disobey the priest appointed to minister there to Yahovah your El, or the judge, that person shall die. So you shall purge the evil from Israel. All the people will hear and be afraid, and will not act presumptuously again.
We can stop it there if we can cover some things. So in the start of Deuteronomy 17 here in verse 3, it's talking about if you hear anybody that's worshiping other gods, you're to bring him to the gates, that a man or woman who has committed such a wicked thing, it shall be stoned to death. And that man, or stoned to death, that man or woman. This is an abomination. This is when they're worshiping other gods, they're committing spiritual adultery. in Yah's eyes, and it is an abomination. And it's something that Yah uses, later on we'll see that, well, I guess maybe we won't, but Yah had tested Israel multiple times by either leaving some Canaanites around, just to see if, they would be enticed into this adultery, spiritual adultery, and going after their gods. And that happened. And because they didn't do this, they didn't stop that in its tracks, worse judgment fell upon Israel. Now we also, later on in this section that Robert just read, we have to be okay with the judgment that the appointed priests or the judges that they had, what the sentence was. If we're not okay with it, and we say, oh, that's not, we're just going to skirt that ruling. That was another, basically an abomination here, which was the death penalty for Israel, because it would just lead to more people skirting the law and doing what they were told, not doing what they were told, and this would lead to more wickedness and sin in the land. So that's why it had to be put down so heavily, so that people in the future wouldn't stray.
So, it's interesting that they say that it requires not just one witness, but two witnesses.
Yeah.
But it makes me think that it wouldn't take much for a couple of evil people to conspire, and that's your two witnesses, and they could use the law as a means to kill their enemies.
Right.
But the law also states that if you falsely accuse and you're caught,
Yeah.
you will incur the punishment you
And
intended for the person.
we'll be getting into that in a little bit. Yeah, exactly.
That's a huge discouragement.
That is a huge discouragement, and that's why the punishment has to be so severe, because you better, if you're a false witness, you better be prepared to have done to you what you're trying to have done to someone else.
And that's why the judges were told to thoroughly investigate. It wasn't you just automatically took the witness of these two people. You inquired to see if there were any other witnesses. Whether there were 2 witnesses or there were 100 witnesses, you were to inquire diligently to ascertain the truth.
Even Yeshua had false witnesses come against him, and it even says that they were false witnesses. So we know that they were false witnesses, but
Well, isn't that why they couldn't stone the woman caught in adultery? Because they didn't have the man with her.
they did.
Yes.
Nobody actually saw.
So nobody, there perhaps was no witnesses, no proper witnesses. They may have all been false witnesses there. They didn't actually see them in the act. And so that would be another interpretation of the one without sin, because they were being false witnesses because they were possibly being false witnesses to this woman, that, they were all sinning in that case.
Well, that the law also said that both were to be stoned.
Yeah.
And they only had one.
Yeah. There's multiple things going on there.
If you're evil enough to actually try to get somebody stoned and it's falsely accused, then you're evil enough to just, have a hard heart and, but it was the Holy Spirit and Yeshua actually saying, those of you without sin, the conviction that came on, necessarily doesn't come on the evil people.
Right.
That's
Right.
instance.
Right.
But
Yeah, the witnesses are the ones that are supposed to carry out the first stoning, or they are the ones that are supposed to cast the first stone. So, I think it makes a lot of sense that perhaps all these people that brought the woman did not actually witness the event, and so they were actually false witnesses in this case, which would mean they couldn't. There was no one there to cast the stone. Just something to think about.
And just in some of the research I had done, if there were 2 witnesses and there came 2 other witnesses who contended with the first 2 witnesses' testimony, then at that point, then the courts would negate the first 2 witnesses, and they would rely on the witnesses that came forward afterwards. and hold their testimony as true.
All right, ready to move on? Verse 14.
When you have come into the land that Yahweh your El is giving you, and have taken possession of it and settled in it, and you say, I will set a king over me, like all the nations that are around me, you may indeed set over you a king whom Yahweh your El will choose. One of your own community you may set as a king over you. You are not permitted to put a foreigner over you, who is not of your own community. Even so, he must not acquire many horses for himself, or return the people to Egypt in order to acquire more horses, since Yahweh said to you, you must never return that way again. And he must not acquire many wives for himself, or else his heart will turn away. Also silver and gold he must not acquire in great quantity for himself. When he has taken the throne of his kingdom, he shall have a copy of this law written for him in the presence of the Levitical priests. It shall remain with him, and he shall read in it all the days of his life, so that he may learn to fear Yahweh his El, diligently observing all the words of this law and these statutes, neither exalting himself above other members of the community, nor turning aside from the commandment, either to the right or to the left, so that he and his descendants may reign long over his kingdom in Israel.
Okay, so I don't know about you, but I know when I read this, I immediately thought of Solomon and how he didn't do a lot of these things. Right. So just covering Solomon and what he did. We read in 2 Chronicles chapter 1, verses 13 through 17. I'll read this section. It says, So Solomon came to Jerusalem from the high place that was in Gibeon, and before the tabernacle of meeting, and reigned over Israel. And Solomon gathered chariots and horsemen. He had 1,400 chariots and 12,000 horsemen, who he stationed in the chariot cities and with the king in Jerusalem. Also, the king made silver and gold as common in Jerusalem as stones, and he made cedars as abundant as the sycamores, which were in the lowland. And Solomon had horses imported from Egypt and Kiveh. The king's merchants bought them in Kiveh at the current price. They also acquired and imported from Egypt a chariot for 600 shekels of silver and a horse for 150. Thus, through their agents, they exported them to all the kings of the Hittites and the kings of Syria. So here they were buying chariots and horses from Egypt and selling them. So, in a way that he's also multiplying money that way, right? He's not only that, he's selling them to the Hittites.
Yeah, to enemies.
To his enemies, basically. These were people that they were supposed to be against, which is interesting to see that. Now, this verse comes right after Yah gives him the blessing, saying that he'll give him wealth and stuff because he asked for wisdom versus other things. So he was supposed to have a lot of wealth and that kind of stuff. But it's still interesting to see that he even went to Egypt. They did dealings with Egypt. And the verse we just read in Deuteronomy says, don't go to Egypt. And I think not only was it so I'm just going to read verse 16 of Deuteronomy 17. It says, But he shall not multiply horses for himself, nor cause the people to return to Egypt to multiply horses. For Jehovah has said to you, you shall not return that way again. I think not only is it for just the horses, but it's also the way they were in Egypt. They were worshiping, they were going after these other gods. Egyptians had tons of different gods, and Yah didn't want that influence on his people, so he didn't want them going back to where they came from or where they had been.
It also says he wasn't given the wealth. It doesn't specifically say to bless him. So we don't know if maybe Abba was testing him, giving him the wealth.
Yeah. Yeah, and it doesn't say here, it doesn't say like he himself had the wealth. It just said, also king made silver and gold common in Jerusalem as stones. So like the city itself
So the nation
was abundantly wealthy. Whether or not Solomon himself was holding on to a lot of that wealth, that's a little.
Yeah,
Well, the scripture also says, don't gather a lot of wives yourselves.
right.
And Solomon had a lot of wives,
Yeah.
and some of them lead him astray.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm going to read a verse on that in
Yeah.
a sec here. So you're
Leading him.
You're leading me a little bit. There was something else I wanted to say before I said that though, and now I'm. What was I gonna do? Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, like if I wasn't saying that, then it's definitely a thing. All right, well, I'll just read 1 Kings chapter 11 verses 1 through 8, and this is regarding Solomon turning his heart away due to his wives. So, I guess one thing I was going to say. Sorry. Solomon also married the princess of Egypt. Made that deal with Egypt. And it's like, like that's going back to Egypt in a way. All right, so what I was going to say, 1 Kings chapter 11, verses 1 through 8. It says, "But King Solomon loved many foreign women, as well as the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, and Hittites, from the nations of whom Jehovah had said to the children of Israel, 'You shall not intermarry with them, nor they with you. Surely they will turn away your hearts after their gods.' Solomon clung to those in love, and he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. For it was so when Solomon was old that his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not loyal to Jehovah his El, as was the heart of his father David. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. Solomon did evil in the sight of Jehovah, and did not fully follow Jehovah as did his father. Then Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, on the hill that is east of Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the people of Ammon. And he did likewise for all his foreign wives. For all his foreign wives would burn incense and sacrifice to their gods." So we can see Solomon did not obey the commandment here in Deuteronomy 17:16, and he went after these foreign women, and he multiplied his wives, went after these foreign women, and got led astray. And because of that, the kingdom got taken out of his hand. Israel paid for it in the end, is what happened. I'm trying to remember exactly what happened, and I'm drawing a little bit of a blank. And I kind of wished I had kept a couple more verses here because it does go into that, but I didn't. Yep. So,
And the thing that we have to really reflect upon is Solomon was instructed as a king to write out the entire Torah. So it wasn't like, oops, I accidentally didn't see that verse. These verses that prohibited me from multiplying wives, from returning to Egypt to multiply horses, to multiply gold and silver. I mean, he knew this. So that's why we have to constantly reflect upon everything that we do to keep ourselves in check, to follow Yah's word, and to be diligent about that. Because here was a man who was so greatly blessed by Yah. He saw Yah's glory when they dedicated that temple, and yet he stepped away from Yah's word and his instructions.
And weren't the kings also given a separate book of those requirements? Isn't that what the scripture just said, what you read?
Was it king what? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Didn't it say earlier in the scripture something about, that you can have kings over you, and all of the kings will have the book that will tell them basically guidelines about what you're not to do. I've gathered a lot of gold for yourself, I've got a lot of wives, and it was like a separate book, right, they were talking about?
No, I think that was the Torah.
Torah, yeah,
The kings were to write their own copy of the Torah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
And from previous readings that I had done, the copy that they were to make was to be taken from the Levitical priesthood Torah. It wasn't to be taken from another Torah in case there might have been any errors. It was always supposed to be from the Torah that the priesthood had charge of.
One of these things so with that, we see how the kings are supposed to feed on the Torah, basically.
Mm-hmm.
They're supposed to read it. Where does it say that? So let's see. It shall be with him, and he shall read it all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear Yehovah his El, and be careful to observe all the words of this law and these statutes, that his heart may not be lifted above his brethren, that he may not turn aside from the commandments to the right hand or to the left, and that he may prolong his days in his kingdom, he and his children in the midst of Israel. So he's a good, righteous king will have the word of Yah in him. He will be feeding on it and knowing to fear Yah, and learn Yah's ways so that he can rule righteously and be a righteous king.
Because those in authority are held more accountable, and they are to be the example to everyone. And that was something that he just didn't do. So that led to the downfall, not only of him, but of eventually Israel.
Yeah. Now, Yah didn't immediately take the kingdom away from Solomon, and he did it. He says he doesn't do it due to for David's sake. The blessing that he gave David was pouring over on Solomon, even though Solomon was falling away and doing abominations. But yeah, this idea of the kings, reading the Torah or always having it in their heart, basically, it's something I want to come back to later. So keep that in mind. But there's also, I was trying to find any documentation on if any kings did this, or if they didn't do this, and I wasn't able to find anything saying that they did or didn't keep this. So it's kind of guessing on whether they actually followed this commandment or not, or which king did. I would definitely think that King David did, but some of these other ones, maybe Solomon did at the start, and maybe he stopped reading it later on in his ruling. I don't know. All right. Should we continue on to Deuteronomy 18?
The Levitical priests, the whole tribe of Levi, shall have no allotment or inheritance within Israel. They may eat the sacrifices that are Yehovah's portion, but they shall have no inheritance among the other members of the community. Yehovah is their inheritance, as he promised them. This shall be the priest's due from the people, from those offering a sacrifice, whether an ox or a sheep. They shall give it to the priest, the shoulder, the 2 jowls, and the stomach, the first fruits of your grain, your wine, and your oil, as well as the first of the fleece of your sheep, you shall give him. For Yehovah your El has chosen Levi out of all your tribes to stand and minister in the name of Yehovah, him and his sons for all time. If a Levite leaves any of your towns, from wherever he has been residing in Israel, and comes to the place that Yehovah will choose, and he may come whenever he wishes, then he may minister in the name of Yehovah his El, like all his fellow Levites, who stand to minister there before Yehovah. They shall have equal portions to eat, even though they have income from the sale of family possessions. When you come into the land that Yahweh your El is giving you, you must not learn to imitate the abhorrent practices of those nations. No one shall be found among you who makes a son or a daughter pass through fire, or who practice divination, or is a soothsayer, or an augur, or a sorcerer, or one who casts spells, or who consults ghosts or spirits, or who sees oracles from the dead. For whoever does these things is abhorrent to Yahweh. It is because of such abhorrent practices that Yahweh your El is driving them out before you. You must remain completely loyal to Yahweh your El. Although these nations that you are about to dispossess do give heed to soothsayers and diviners, as for you, Yahweh your El does not permit you to do so.
I guess we can stop it there for a little bit. All right, so back at the start of Deuteronomy 18, it's talking about the priests and the Levites. A portion of your sacrifice and offering was for the Levites because they didn't have land or an inheritance, so they were blessed by the people blessing Yah. And I'm not going to touch. Then we go down to avoiding the wicked customs, and this idea is completely repeated over and over and over and over, because the people of the land were wicked, and this is the reason Yah was driving them out. They were worshiping other gods, and they were making they were doing such wicked things as basically offering their children to their gods. And this is such an abomination and a warning to Israel, do not do these things, because the people that you're kicking out are the ones that are doing this, so don't follow after them. It's just reiterating that. All right, you want to go on?
Mm-hmm. Verse 15. Yahweh your El will raise up for you a prophet like me from among your own people. You shall heed such a prophet. This is what you requested of Yahweh your El at Horeb on the day of the assembly when you said, if I hear the voice of Yahweh my El any more, or ever again see this great fire, I will die. Then Yahweh replied to me, they are right in what they have said. I will raise up for them a prophet like you from among their own people. I will put my words in the mouth of the prophet, who shall speak to them everything that I command. Anyone who does not heed the words that the prophet shall speak in my name, I myself will hold accountable. But any prophet who speaks in the name of other Elohim, or who presumes to speak in my name a word that I have not commanded the prophet to speak, that prophet shall die. You may say to yourself, how can we recognize a word that Yahweh has not spoken? If a prophet speaks in the name of Yahweh, but the thing does not take place or prove true, it is a word that Yahweh has not spoken. The prophet has spoken it presumptuously. Do not be frightened by it.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the previous paragraph here. We're talking about the abominations that the people did. Just because I want to say, we need to watch out for what we're doing today. There are churches out there that will do Christian tarot cards and that kind of thing. These are soothsaying and diviners. Even there are some that promote laying on top of graves and things like that. I can't remember what that's called, but there are some, they're lost. They don't understand the word and Yah's ways, and what we are to not do. So I just wanted to just briefly touch on that. We need to make sure that we're not going after the same things that the people practiced back then. Now the prophet like Moses, we hear this usually taught all about Yeshua. Yeshua is the prophet like Moses, who speaks directly to God, or in this case the Father. But I think this section has to do with all the prophets, all the main prophets, because it talks about, prophet like you from among the children, where I will put my words in his mouth, and he will speak to them all that I command. And, all these prophets that we had said, thus says Yehovah. These are the words that Yah is putting in their mouth. So it's not just Yeshua that this relates to. It's all the prophets that spoke for Yah. And I think we need to keep that in mind when we're looking at this. And, if the prophets, if things don't come to pass, then they were supposed to be stoned, I think.
It says, do not be frightened of them.
Yeah, it says don't be frightened of them. If they have a prophecy that just doesn't happen, don't be afraid of them. But if they come and lead you to other gods,
Right.
then you are supposed to stone them, I believe. It doesn't actually say that here, does it? That's in the Deuteronomy 30. Oh, that prophet shall die.
Right.
It says that prophet shall die here.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, what ended up happening is the real prophets, those are the ones that got killed because they were telling the priests and things that they didn't want to hear. And instead, they... So they killed the real prophets,
Right.
and they probably didn't kill the false ones because they just told them what they wanted to hear.
Yeah.
Just
So you have to wonder about some of the ministers and evangelical ministers on TV over the years that have made statements that, well, this is going to happen such and such a year. The end of the world is coming, and different things like that. And all in the name of the Lord, I heard from the Lord, they said, this is going to happen. It didn't happen.
right.
Right.
I mean, it's scary to I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want to say something unless you are just so sure
Right.
that it's from God. We don't have the benefit of him speaking to us, well, although he does do that once in a while, but audibly.
Right.
And so that's the Holy Spirit in the heart.
Right. Which is why we are supposed to basically watch these, see what these people have to say, but then, depending on what happens or whatnot, then we know, like if a prophet says this and it doesn't come true, then you should not be afraid of him.
Yeah.
It's not, we don't need to listen to him. Yeah, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
When it talks about all the abhorrent practices that the heathens participated in, you really have to watch what goes on within a congregation and what's accepted anymore in congregations. The things that a lot of these congregations accept and tolerate should not be done. I mean, you can run the gamut, everything from, people living in adulterous relationships. You can look at abortion. I mean, there's just so many things. When you look at, the alphabet people, all the gay stuff, everything like that, and yet they embrace those things. We're to love those people and to teach them that what they're doing is wrong. But we're not to embrace that kind of practice. And when you bring that into your congregation and people see that and they think, oh, well, it must be acceptable, then you're polluting. You're told to keep your camp clean. When you're made aware of it, you see those things, you go to those people out of love, and you show them their error in Scripture. Then you take the elders, those in authority, to them. If they insist on not stopping what they're doing, then you go to them, you explain to them again, you need to stop. If they don't, then at that point, then you do cut ties, because it's very hard for good to influence evil. It's very easy for evil to influence those that are good. And that's why you have to put these things out of the camp. You cannot tolerate those things. But like I said, everything you do with love, because Yah doesn't want anyone to perish. But there comes a time where if they don't want to mend their ways, they don't want to be true to Yah, then you do have to cut ties and put those kind of things out of the congregation. Because will be the downfall of a congregation.
Yeah, once you start letting those people like sin into your camp, you know, they can gradually influence the other people and turn people against each other. And in a way, that's exactly, you know, what happens with Israel in this case. You know, for our going after the other gods or the other people, they gradually got influenced.
We're constantly told that sin will always take us further than we ever intend to go. You know, that's in a lot of parenting books to remind our children, one step can make them 3.
Yep. You open the door and it takes you down a bad path.
And just as Mary said, you know, when the golden calf instance, you had the Levites step up and they killed 3,000 of their own people to put an end to it. So there are things that Yah will not tolerate. And we need to know His word so that we know what's right, what's wrong, and that we keep those things out of the camp. Because, yes, some of us may be strong enough in our faith to resist those things, but we have children. None of us are above being seduced into evil acts. And that's why we really have to be diligent to keep those things away from any or all of us.
And this is why the punishment was always so harsh, and why it had to be carried out. It wasn't because they didn't, want to be lenient or anything like that. It's so that nobody would get the idea that saying that that's an okay thing to do, and I can do that because it's not going to be that bad if I do that. They always had to know that you are leading yourself to death. Like when you're going against the word, you are leading yourself to death, even if it's not immediate death. It would be spiritual death in the end when you're going against Yah. All right, should we go on?
Continuing, Deuteronomy 19:1. When Yahovah your El has cut off the nations whose land Yahovah your El is giving you, and you have dispossessed them and settled in their towns and in their houses, you shall set apart 3 cities in the land that Yahovah your El is giving you to possess. You shall calculate the distances and divide into 3 regions the land that Yahovah your El gives you as a possession, so that any homicide can flee to one of them. Now this is the case of a homicide who might flee there and live. That is, someone who has killed another person unintentionally when the two had not been at enmity before. Suppose someone goes into the forest with another to cut wood, and when one of them swings the axe to cut down a tree, the head slips from the handle and strikes the other person, who then dies. The killer may flee to one of these cities and live. But if the distance is too great, the avenger of blood in hot anger might pursue and overtake and put the killer to death, although a death sentence was not deserved, since the two had not been at enmity before. Therefore I command you, you shall set apart 3 cities. If Yahovah your El enlarges your territory, as he swore to your ancestors, and he will give you all the land that he promised to your ancestors to give you, provided you diligently observe this entire commandment that I command you today, by loving Yahovah your El and walking always in his ways, then you shall add 3 more cities to these 3, so that the blood of an innocent person may not be shed in the land that Yahovah your El is giving you as an inheritance, thereby bringing blood guilt upon you. But if someone at enmity with another lies in wait, and attacks and takes the life of that person, and flees into one of these cities, then the elders of the killer's city shall send to have the culprit taken from there, and handed over to the avenger of blood to be put to death. Show no pity. You shall purge the guilt of innocent blood from Israel, so that it may go well with you.
Okay. I've got a map for this. Now, in Deuteronomy 19 here, it says there, you shall separate 3 cities for yourself. And then it says, when you go into the land, let's see, if you keep all the commandments which I command you today in all his ways, then you shall add 3 more cities for yourself besides these 3. So it's not quite clear which 3 the first 3 are. It's never mentioned that I know of. In Joshua chapter 20, verses 7 through 8, it says this. So they appointed Kadesh in Galilee, which... Why am I not seeing? Okay, yeah, we see Kadesh way up there on the north. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's up here. It's Kadesh up here. In the mountains of Naphtali, Shechem in the mountains of Ephraim, which is south of that, and then with and Kiryah Arba, which is Hebron. So we have Hebron down here in the south. In the mountains of Judah. And on the other side of the Jordan, by Jericho eastward, they assign Bezir in the wilderness on the plain. That's how you pronounce it. So it's out here in Reuben. In the wilderness on the plain, from the tribe of Reuben, Ramoth in Gilead. So we have Ramoth just up there. From the tribe of Gad, and Golan in Bashan from the tribe of Manasseh. And so we have Golan just up to that. So, because of when this happens, when Deuteronomy 19 happens, it seems like there would be maybe these 3 cities on the right-hand side, on the side of the Jordan, since that's where they were at this time. It would make sense that those 3 are the ones that they first had, and then they later added these other 3. Yeah, I think I didn't really have anything else to add to this. We again have if the elders, believe that he is guilty, then they may hand him over to the avenger of blood, that he may die, and you shall not have pity on him. That you should put away the guilt of the innocent blood from Israel, that it may go well with you. So, yeah, it's just another time we're not to have pity on carrying out judgment on somebody because of what they've done. Yeah, I don't have anything. Does anybody have any questions on this? No comments? All right, you can move on.
Verse 14, you must not move your neighbor's boundary marker, set up by former generations, on the property that will be allotted to you in the land that Yahweh your El is giving you to possess. A single witness shall not suffice to convict a person of any crime or wrongdoing in connection with any offense that may be committed. Only on the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses shall a charge be sustained. If a malicious witness comes forward to accuse someone of wrongdoing, then both parties to the dispute shall appear before Yahweh, before the priests and the judges who are in office in those days. And the judges shall make a thorough inquiry. If the witness is a false witness, having testified falsely against another, then you shall do to the false witness just as the false witness had meant to do to the other. So you shall purge the evil from your midst. The rest shall hear and be afraid, and a crime such as this shall never again be committed among you. Show no pity, life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot.
So here we have that, what you were bringing up earlier, the whole witness, the two witness things. If you have a false witness, they are to be basically their judgment. If you find out they're a false witness, then their judgment is, life shall be for life. So if they were trying to get someone killed, then that their life is forfeit. Eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. For it's just saying, like whatever they were trying to do, that should be done to them. We're not to have pity on that. Questions? No? All right. Deuteronomy 20.
When you go out to war against your enemies and see horses and chariots, an army larger than your own, you shall not be afraid of them, for Yahovah your El is with you, who brought you up from the land of Egypt. Before you engage in battle, the priest shall come forward and speak to the troops, and shall say to them, Hear, O Israel, today you are drawing near to do battle against your enemies. Do not lose heart or be afraid, or panic, or be in dread of them, for it is Yahovah your El who goes with you, to fight for you against your enemies, to give you victory. Then the officials shall address the troops, saying, Has anyone built a new house, but not dedicated it? He should go back to his house, or he might die in battle, and another dedicate it. Has anyone planted a vineyard, but not yet enjoyed its fruit? He should go back to his house, or he might die in the battle, and another be first to enjoy its fruit. Has anyone become engaged to a woman, but not yet married her? He should go back to his house, or he might die in the battle, and another marry her. The officials shall continue to address the troops, saying, Is anyone afraid or disheartened? He should go back to his house, or he might cause the heart of his comrades to melt like his own. When the officials have finished addressing the troops, then the commander shall take charge of them. When you draw near to a town to fight against it, offer it terms of peace. If it accepts your terms of peace and surrenders to you, then all the people in it shall serve you at forced labor. If it does not submit to you peacefully, but makes war against you, then you shall besiege it. And when Yahovah your El gives it into your hand, you shall put all its males to the sword. You may, however, take as booty the women, the children, livestock, and everything else in the town, all its spoil. You may enjoy the spoil of your enemies, which Yahovah your El has given you. Thus you shall treat all the towns that are very far from you, which are not towns of the nations here. But as for the towns of these peoples, that Yahovah your El is giving you as an inheritance, you must not let anything that breathes remain alive. You shall annihilate them, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, just as Yahovah your El has commanded, so that they may not teach you to do all the abhorrent things that they do for their Elohim, and you thus sin against Yahovah your El. If you besiege a town for a long time, making war against it in order to take it, you must not destroy its trees by wielding an axe against them. Although you may take food from them, you must not cut them down. Are trees in the field human beings that they should come under siege from you? You may destroy only the trees that you know do not produce food. You may cut them down for use in building siege works against the town that makes war with you until it falls.
Okay. So it's so interesting, the group that they have together, gathered for battle. It's kind of contrary to how we would think. If we come against a group of enemies whose horses and chariots are more numerous than us, do not be afraid. Yahovah is with you. But the officers, it says the officers are to speak to the men, and let so many of them go. Those who just built a house and have not dedicated it, those who planted a vineyard, those who just got betrothed, those that even fear. the battle to come. Those, they are able to be released. And since this is kind of like, you would think you'd want all the men you could gather, muster, if you're coming against a big army, but this is not what Yah says. This is not what Yah's way is. And it's interesting because, all these people have something else going on in their head if they're going to go to battle. They're either fearful, as far as the fearful people, and they might actually turn the hearts of the men that are with them. That will cause them to maybe fear or doubt that Yah will not carry them through this fight. So Yah releases them, which, just counterintuitive with how we would think we would want. I wanted to also touch on the people that they were to destroy. And in verse 17 it says, "But you shall utterly destroy them: the Hittite, the Amorite, the Canaanite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite." And I was wondering, like, who are exactly these people? Like, why? Who are they? And in studying for this, I found that in Deuteronomy 7:1, it actually says that there was actually another group. So there were 6 groups here named in verse 17, but in Deuteronomy 7:1 it says, "When Yehovah your God brings you to the land which you go to possess, and you cast out many nations before you, and has cast out many nations before you, the Hittites and the Girgashites and the Amorites and the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than you." So here it also adds the Girgashites. So what were the origin of these tribes? In Genesis 10:15, we get the origin of some of them anyway, and it says, "Canaan begot Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth, the Jebusite, the Amorite, the Girgashite, the Hivite, the Archite, and the Sinite, the Arvadite, the Zamarite, and the Hamathite. Afterward, the families of the Canaanites were dispersed, and the border of the Canaanites was from Sidon, as you go towards Gerar, as far as Gaza. Then as you go towards Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zebulun, as far as Lashah." Okay, so just so you know, Sidon is that city way at the very top of this map. It's way up there. That's where Sidon is, and I think we all know where Gaza is. It's down here. And so it's basically Israel is the land that the Canaanites, in this case, it's the Canaanites. So Canaanite begot Sidon and Heth. And Heth, I guess, turned into all these other tribes. So that answers the question, who were the Jebusites? Who were the let's see, where is it? Jebusites, the Amorites, the Girgashites, and is it the... So, yeah, that answer is what a few of these are. But then, who are the Hittites? Because that's not in this. It didn't say that Hittites are part of this. Well, in Genesis 23:10, it says, "Now Ephron dwelt among the sons of Heth." So again, this is the same son of Canaan, Heth. "And Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the presence of the sons of Heth, all who entered at the gate of the city, saying, 'No, my Lord, hear me. I give you the field and the cave that is in it. I give it to you in the presence of the sons of my people. I give it to you.'" So I think it's safe to say, the Hittites were part of the sons of Heth, even though it's not really mentioned in the Genesis 10, verse 15. He's still saying in the presence of his sons, and he's a Hittite, and he says he's among the sons of Heth. So either there was an intermixing of another group of people, or they were actually also part of the sons of Heth. Now, so that leads the Perizzites, and Parasites, yeah. The parasites, which honestly, there is no real information on exactly who the parasites are. It's anybody's guess. The parasites is Strong's word for that. Means inhabitants of open country or belonging to a village. So we don't really know if they're actually descendants of Canaan or if they were just other people in the land that were doing wickedness. Did you have?
So what determined that they were actually enemies were their origin? In the way is it their origin, or is it the fact that they needed to go and possess the land? If they agreed upon it, they became slaves, and if they didn't agree upon it, they would be plundered. See, but the fact that they were enemies was because they were just in the place that Yahweh wanted them to take.
Well,
Their origin.
I think it's not necessarily because of their origin, but it's because of the defiling of the land that they were doing.
Right.
They were defiling the land, and it talks about what was that verse? And I can't remember where it talks about. I think the Amorites, their transgressions were not yet complete.
So it's completely different.
So yeah, it's the way they were living. They weren't. They were doing wickedness. They were defiling the land, so they needed to go. And it's interesting too. This there was that Canaan's curse that I had read last week regarding when Ham saw Noah's nakedness. And Noah puts that curse, saying that cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants, he shall be to his brethren. So all these are descendants of Canaan, and they are to be servants for the others, the descendants of Seth and Japheth. So it's interesting, when in Deuteronomy 20 it says they can offer them peace, and if they take it, then they are going to be servants, basically. So they can be these servants. And even in 1 Kings 9:20 through 21. This is Solomon's day. It says, and the people who were left of the Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, who were not of the children of Israel, that is, their descendants who were left in the land after them, whom the children of Israel had not been able to destroy completely, from these Solomon raised forced labor, as it is to this day. So that's just another, kind of fulfilling what the curse that Noah had put on these descendants of Canaan. Yeah.
I take two questions.
Okay.
First one, if you look at the map, where does the Termites live?
I don't
They
know.
were in the wooded area.
Yeah, they were probably up north.
Are there any ice left?
Are there any of the ites left? That's a good question. I don't know. I don't think nobody defines themselves as the ites. Whether they're still around or not's
Right.
a good question.
How about the Shiites?
Yeah.
Well, that's not specific.
Yeah.
The Shiites are a different type of ite. Maybe they're not. Maybe they are some kind of descendant. I don't know.
That's an interesting question. Which
Yep.
tribe they came from?
Right.
Because all of the tribes ultimately came from Noah.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Take that to
Yep. Now, you do have to remember that there was a distinction made between the inhabitants in Eretz Israel that they were to go in. They were to destroy all of those people. The people that they were talking about here, where they were to give the option of surrender of peace, were outside of the land of Israel. Those people were not to, you were to give them a choice. If they wanted to surrender, then they became servants. But those that were in Eretz Israel itself, they were to spare none of those people.
Yeah, Michelle has actually said, yeah, there are ites left. Yeshua comes down the king's highway and destroys them when he returns. So this is from after Basra, I think, when he's coming up from Basra, killing them.
Also, isn't it like when for the ones who they could spare the women and children, they were given, like, servitude was only a limited time period. So essentially, they would have a choice at the end of that to either join and stay or leave, wouldn't they? I don't know, maybe I'm missing.
Yeah, I don't know how that worked.
I thought slavery only had a certain amount of years that they could be held.
Oh, the 7 years?
Yeah.
I thought that was just.
That was among brethren, I believe. Yeah, those that were outside, that were not of Eretz Israel, of an Israelite Hebrew, they, from my recollection, they could be held as servants forever.
Okay.
But
So I
your
thought there was
brothers-
something about, like, with the women, they could choose to marry into
Yeah,
the people, which would be conversion too. because
Right.
You can't marry an unbeliever.
Right.
Or she could return, I thought it said something like that.
but as far as amongst those that were your brothers,
Yeah.
native Israelites, then they were, it was a 7-year limit. Yeah.
So there was this verse here that I didn't think I actually written down, but I guess I did, so I'll read it. It's Judges 3:5. And it says, "Now these are the nations which Jehovah left, that he might test Israel by them. That is, all who had not known any of the wars of Canaan. This was only so that the generations of the children of Israel might be taught to know war, This was only so that the generations of the children of Israel might be taught to know war, at least those who had not formerly known it. Namely, 5 lords of the Philistines, all the Canaanites, the Sidonians, and the Hivites who dwelt in Mount Lebanon, from Mount Baal Hermon to the entrance of Hamath. And they were left, that he might test Israel by them, to know whether they would obey the commandments of Jehovah, which he had commanded their fathers by the hand of Moses. Thus the children of Israel dwelt among the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And they took their daughters to be their wives, and gave their daughters to their sons, and they served their gods." So this is where Israel, failed the test. They failed the test, and it's kind of interesting. This is all talking about Lebanon area basically, and Lebanon is. Israel was just attacking them just recently, right? Just this couple weeks ago or something, last week.
Yep.
That's interesting. And Lebanon is actually in the millennial reign in Ezekiel. What is it? Now I can't remember which chapter. The last chapters of Ezekiel, where it talks about the land and how it's going to be divided in millennial reign. Lebanon is part of Israel, so all that is like right now it's Lebanon. It's still Lebanon. So makes me wonder if some of these ites are actually still in Lebanon, maybe. All right.
Okay, chapter 21. If in the land that Yahovah your El is giving you to possess, a body is found lying in open country, and it is not known who struck the person down, then your elders and your judges shall come out to measure the distance to the towns that are near the body. The elders of the town nearest the body shall take a heifer that has never been worked, one that has not pulled in the yoke. The elders of that town shall bring the heifer down to a wadi with running water, which is neither plowed or sown, and shall break the heifer's neck there in the wadi. Then the priests, the sons of Levi, shall come forward, for Yahovah your El has chosen them to minister to him, and to pronounce blessings in the name of Yahovah. And by their decision all cases of dispute and assault shall be settled. All the elders of that town nearest the body shall wash their hands over the heifer whose neck was broken in the wadi, and they shall declare, Our hands did not shed this blood, nor were we witnesses to it. Absolve, O Yehovah, your people Israel, whom you redeemed. Do not let the guilt of innocent blood remain in the midst of your people Israel. Then they will be absolved of blood guilt. So you shall purge the guilt of innocent blood from your midst, because you must do what is right in the sight of Yehovah.
So it's kind of an interesting sacrifice that they would do for unsolved murder cases, basically. Now, this is only going to be valid if they truly don't know who did it. Like if they are saying that they don't know who did this, but they actually do, then this is not going to be valid. In Numbers chapter 35, verses 31 through 34, it also talks about this, and I wanted to read it. So starting here in verse 31 in Numbers chapter 35, moreover, you shall take no ransom for the life of a murderer who is guilty of death, but he shall surely be put to death. And you shall take no ransom for him who has fled to the city of refuge, that he may return to dwell in the land before the death of the priest. So you shall not pollute the land where you are, for blood defiles the land, and no atonement can be made for the land, for the blood that is shed on it, except by the blood of him who shed it. Therefore, do not defile the land which you inhabit, in the midst of which I dwell, for I, Yehovah, dwell among the children of Israel. So here we see that the land is defiled for murder, which is why we have this washing of hands and this ritual of killing this heifer, to say we've done what we can do, but without any witnesses, we don't know who killed this person. So I think it's just a way to ritually show Yah that you've tried, but this is all you can do. I'm not sure what the purpose of why it's a young or a heifer that hasn't been worked.
I know there's kind of a correlation with the red heifer here, in that that heifer would never have been worked, but she would have been an all red heifer. In this place, we see that the blood of animals is nothing more than a covering. So in this case, I see it as a covering for the innocent blood that was shed, because they could not bring whoever had done this to justice, so that in the shedding of their blood, if they did know, that would cover the blood of the innocent person. But in this case, since they did not know, then the covering would have been that of this heifer.
Kind of like an acknowledgement.
Yes.
It's, and this is the covering. It's something that we also see with when you aren't guilty of meaning to slaughter someone, and you flee to that city of refuge, and you need to stay there till the high priest dies, because the high priest is your covering at that point. And when you die, I think that's a way of showing that annuls the debt that that high priest pays. The high priest pays for you, just like Yeshua, our high priest, paid for us.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's gonna.
So this is all it all kind of connects. Like you said, the red heifer. The red heifer was for touching dead bodies, like cleansing from death. So yeah, I'm sure there's something more there that I'm not fully picking up on, but it's interesting. All right, I'm ready to move on. All right, so moving on to the Haftarah, Isaiah 51, verse 12 through 52, verse 12.
I am he who comforts you. Why then are you afraid of a mere mortal who must die, a human being who fades like grass? You have forgotten Yehovah your Maker, who stretched out the heavens and laid the foundations of the earth. You fear continually all day long because of the fury of the oppressor, who is bent on destruction. But where is the fury of the oppressor? The oppressed shall speedily be released. They shall not die and go down to the pit, nor shall they lack bread. For I am Yahovah your El, who stirs up the sea so that its waves roar. The Master of hosts is his name. I have put my words in your mouth and hidden you in the shadow of my hand, stretching out the heavens and laying the foundations of the earth, and saying to Zion, you are my people. Rouse yourself, stand up, O Jerusalem. You have drunk at the hand of Yahovah the cup of his wrath, who have drunk to the dregs the bowl of staggering. There is no one to guide her among all the children she has borne. There is no one to take her by the hand among all the children she has brought up. These two things have befallen you. Who will grieve with you? Devastation and destruction, famine and sword. Who will comfort you? Your children have fainted. They lie at the head of every street, like an antelope in a net. They are full of the wrath of Yahovah, the rebuke of your El. Therefore hear this, you who are wounded, who are drunk, but not with wine. Thus says your sovereign, Yahovah your El, who pleads the cause of his people. See, I have taken from your hand the cup of staggering. You shall drink no more from the bowl of my wrath. And I will put it into the hand of your tormentors, who have said to you, bow down that we may walk on you. And you may have made your back like the ground, and like the street for them to walk on. Awake, awake, put your strength, O Zion. Put on your beautiful garments, O Jerusalem, the holy city. For the uncircumcised and the unclean shall enter you no more. Shake yourself up from the dust. Rise up, O captive, Jerusalem. Loose the bonds from your neck, O captive daughter, Zion. For thus says Yahovah, you were sold for nothing, and you shall be redeemed without money. For thus says Yahovah your El, long ago my people went down into Egypt to reside there as aliens. The Assyrian, too, has oppressed them without cause. Now therefore what I am doing here, says Yahovah, seeing that my people are taken away without cause. Their rulers howl, says Yahovah, and continually all day long my name is despised. Therefore my people shall know my name. Therefore in that day they shall know that it is I who speak. Here am I. How beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of the messengers who announce peace, who bring good news, who announce salvation, who says to Zion, your El reigns. Listen, your sentinels lift up their voices. Together they sing for joy, for in plain sight they see the return of Yahovah to Zion. Break forth together into singing, you ruins of Jerusalem, for Yahovah has comforted his people. He has redeemed Jerusalem. Yahovah has bared his holy arm before the eyes of all the nations, and all the ends of the earth shall see the salvation of our El. Depart, depart, go out from there. Touch no unclean thing. Go out from the midst of it. Purify yourselves, you who carry the vessels of Yahovah. For you shall not go out in haste, and you shall not go in flight. For Yahovah will go before you, and the El of Israel will be your rear guard.
So this is, I believe this is all prophecy for Israel in the days to come. It first starts off with, the people have forgotten Yehovah, but yet they're, they fear for the fury of their oppressor. But where is the fury of their oppressor? Yah has protected them. And then it goes on to say, Yah has you have drunk from the hand of Yah the cup of his fury, and they've drunk the dregs of the cup of trembling. So they've drunk to the bottom of this cup. And I think we can see, and I don't know if this is probably future and past fulfillment in a way. What happened to Jerusalem, what happened to Israel, the wrath of God's fury, like in 70 AD when the temple was destroyed, and what may still happen, I'm not sure. But it talks about he'll take the cup out of their hand and give it to the ones that, let's see, in 23, but I will put it in the hand of those who afflict you, who have said to you, lie down, that we may walk over you. So he's going to who then pour out his judgment on the people that are against them. Let's see, is there anything else I wanted to touch on in here? And then we have in start of Isaiah 52, awake, awake, put on your strength, O Zion, put on your beautiful garments, O Jerusalem, the holy city, for the uncircumcised and the unclean shall no longer come to you. I think this is millennial reign here, where nobody that is unclean is going to come into the city of Jerusalem. And this kind of goes along with Joel 3, verse 17. It says, so you shall know that I am Yehovah your El, dwelling in Zion, my holy mountain. Then Jerusalem shall be holy, and no aliens shall ever pass through her again. So it's just showing that the holiness of Jerusalem is going to be restored, and nobody who is unclean or not holy, people who are uncircumcised, the aliens are not allowed to go there. I think that's kind of the big things that I wanted to touch on. In verse 5, it talks about the people that are against Yah's people blaspheming the name continually, but people that know my name, Yah will put up with those foreigners blaspheming his name, but the people that know him will know that he is good, and that it is him. So, and that Yah will reign, that he reigns. I don't really have anything else I think I wanted to add.
We just need to always realize that Yahovah goes before us. If we walk in his ways, if we keep his commandments, we need not fear man, anyone that can take our life. We're not to fear them, because Yahovah goes before us. He prepares. Messiah went to prepare a place for each and every one of his that are his. So we have nothing to fear. To lose our life is to gain. Anything that we go through, give Yah the glory, because he takes us through many difficult things in life so that he can bring us out on the other side and raise us up. So just always remember, don't be afraid. Stay faithful to Yah. He will get you through anything and everything, and we have no man to fear. Our God goes before us.
Amen. Yeah. Yeah, and that just goes exactly like with the end of this verse, right? It says, for you shall not go out with haste, nor go by flight, for Yehovah will go before you, and the El of Israel will be your rear guard. I read this, I guess the verse before this. Depart, go out from there, touch no unclean thing. Go out from the midst of her, be clean, you who bear the vessels of Yehovah. I'm like, what is this? What is he talking about? What are the vessels of Yehovah? And I think that can be the who are spiritually clean. The word vessels is also used in that parable of the virgins, the wise virgins versus the foolish, and it's in that parable it's used as the extra vessels that the wise virgins took, that had the oil. So I think this is just another example of basically carrying the oil of Yah. Yeah, I just thought I'd point that out. So these are likely the wise. These are the wise that had the vessels. All right, I want to go on to the. Unless someone has any questions, comments. Do you have something, Daniel?
I'm just going to read a passage of scripture out of James.
Okay.
James 1:2. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse trials, knowing this, that the trying of your faith works patience. But let patience have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect, entire, wanting nothing. Without trials and tribulations, we will not know who Yah truly is. And we will not know how he can deliver us and how faithful he is to us, even in the valleys. And we need to learn from those trials, but we need to lean on Yah to get us through those, to deliver us, not to ask him to take us out of them, but to deliver us through them, to show how big and how true and how loving and kind and caring and merciful he is to us.
Amen.
Yeah, amen. Yeah, we get tested, and we get what is the saying? Refined like silver and tested like gold, something like that. Mm-hmm. So we have to go through the refining process, and that's not always fun. But praise Yah when we remain faithful and get through it. All right, so we are in the gospel section, John chapter 14, verses 9 through 20.
Yeshua said to him, "Have I been with you all this time, Philip, and you still do not know me? Whoever has seen me has seen the Father. How can you say, 'Show us the Father'? Do you not believe that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me? The words that I say to you, I do not speak on my own, but the Father who dwells in me does his works. Believe me that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. But if you do not, then believe me because of the works themselves. Very truly, I tell you, the one who believes in me will also do the works that I do, and, in fact, will do greater works than these, because I am going to the Father. I will do whatever you ask in my name, so that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If in my name you ask me for anything, I will do it. But if you love me, you will keep my commandments, and I will ask the Father, and he will give you another advocate, to be with you forever. This is the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it neither sees him nor knows him. You know him, because he abides with you, and he will be in you. I will not leave you orphaned. I am coming to you. In a little while, the world will no longer see me, but you will see me, because I live, you also will live. On that day, you will know that I am in my Father, and you in me, and I in you."
Oh, I apparently had more verses here. You want to read 21 as well?
Sure. "They who have my commandments and keep them are those who love me. And those who love me will be loved by my Father, and I will love them and reveal myself to them."
Okay. So, did you have anything you wanted to say about this?
Believe in Yah's promises. Messiah came to walk out the Torah perfectly, to give us the example, to follow. And believe in his words, because the words that he spoke came from the Father. And those words are words of wisdom, of Torah, and they're given to us out of love, because he wants the best for us. So be obedient to him. And if you ask and believe, Yah will give all that we ask. The promises that he's given us, that of eternal life, to be with him forever in his kingdom, any trial or tribulation that we go through is nothing. The rewards that we'll receive if we're faithful to the end, no matter what the end is, it doesn't matter. Just look at the rewards that you'll be given when we are in his kingdom. So believe in his promises. Yah never goes back on his word.
Amen. Man, I don't know if I want to say anything. That was well said, brother. One thing I guess, like I had prepared earlier, when I talked about the king writing the Torah, who is the King of Kings, right? Yeshua is the King of Kings, and he has, his Father's words in him. He is in his Father, and his Father in him, just as we are to be in him and he in us. I think this goes along with writing the Torah on our hearts, just as Jeremiah 31 to 34 states. I'll just read it because it's such a good verse. It says, "Behold, the days are coming, says Yehovah, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, my covenant which they broke, though I was a husband to them, says Yehovah. But this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Yehovah after those days, says Yehovah. I will put my law in their minds and write it on their hearts, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. No more shall every man teach his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, Know the Lord, for they all shall know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them, says Yehovah. For I will forgive their iniquity, and their sin I will remember no more." This is the good news of the gospel. So we need to be like kings and write the word on our hearts and in our minds. Keep it on our forethoughts, or in the front of our minds. And dwell on it so we can be in Yeshua, just like he is in his Father and he is in us and we are in him. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom. Shavua tov.